You have to understand how things are up
Hey guys, it's your ghost John, and welcome to What Is It? One of our too many episodes that come out every single week. Please also consider tuning into our hour-long episode that comes out every Wednesday, and don't forget to Google the 21CD podcast and follow us everywhere, and to check out 21cdstudios.com for updates and links to our other places. Let's get into it. Elves are these ancient supernatural beings believed to exist in a realm that's parallel to our own. They are deeply rooted in folklore and myth, and they're often described as ageless and very powerful entities with abilities that defy human comprehension. Elves can be both benevolent and malevolent, and they influence the natural world in a big way. They can even influence weather and human fate. Some believe that they live in hidden places like caves and forests, some kind of underground realm, or within mysterious standing stones even, except they're only visible to those that they choose to be visible to. Elves are seen as guardians of ancient knowledge and wielders of this power that mankind has come to call magic, and messengers between our world and whatever lies beyond. They kind of sound like angels in a weird way. Elves are far more than mythical creatures of fairy tales, though. They're these ancient, otherworldly beings that may inhabit realms that are just hidden from us. And according to legend, they exist in a dimension that's just out of sight, and it's only accessible through portals. Some think of things like rings of mushrooms or certain dark forests or whatever, sacred hills, as portals to this other dimension. And they're often seen as guardians of the earth as well, protectors of sacred places and rivers, valleys, mountains. Elves possess this profound knowledge of some kind of power, and they are very deeply connected to nature and time, and they're known for their abilities to influence human destiny. They can bless, they've been known to curse as well, they can heal, and they can harm you. It all depends on how they're approached. And some believe that elves are not just figments of folklore, but are actual interdimensional entities. They could be beings from an alternate reality or a parallel universe whose appearances in our world might be accidental crossings. Or, they could be deliberate visitations. Sightings of elves are often described as fleeting moments of clarity where sort of the veil between dimensions is thin, and you get a revelation of a glimpse of their ethereal beauty or their strange presence. Many traditions say that elves have kind of a dual nature. They can be either light or they can be dark, helpful or mischievous. And light elves are considered luminous beings of pure energy, and they inspire creativity and wonder. But dark elves, they're the more shadowy figures, and they're associated with trickery or hidden dangers. And some researchers theorize that these beings might actually be a form of spiritual or elemental energy, intelligences that operate on a plane that we just can't perceive. Not normally, anyway. And there are these whispers that elves could be manifestations of ancient energies or remnants of forgotten civilizations. They could be fallen gods or demigods or Nephilim or angels or aliens, extraterrestrial beings who have visited Earth for millennia, but we just call them elves. And they might choose to communicate or interfere with our world through subtle signs, dreams, or inexplicable events. And these things are meant to remind us that reality is layered with unseen and unexplainable things. Elves originate from a wide range of folklore, though, and most notably in Norse and Germanic mythology. In Norse myths, they're known as the Alfar, and they're divided into light elves and dark elves. And light elves, like we said, are associated with this kind of beauty and goodness, while dark elves, well, they're more deeply connected to the inner earth and are more mysterious, sometimes seen as tricksters or trappers or malevolent. In Celtic folklore, elves, which are sometimes equated with fairies, are great, powerful beings connected to nature, often dwelling in forests or hidden realms. In Icelandic folklore, elves also make an appearance. They're called the Huldafolk in some cases, also known as the hidden people, but the Icelanders also believe inherently in a completely separate species of elf as well. Nevertheless, the Huldafolk, and the elves kind of share some of the same habits, like inhabiting rocks and hills and caves, and they both live parallel to the humans. And these stories convey elves as protectors of natural places, often reacting with blessings or curses based on how they're treated by humans. In Norse mythology, Alfheimr is the realm of the light elves, and it's a place of stunning beauty and brightness. Indeed, Alfheim stands in the heavens, high in the crown of the world tree Yggdrasil, not far from Asgard and Vanaheim. Although the realm is not described clearly in Norse literature, considering the nature of the elves, it is thought to be quite enchanting. In the 13th century, Icelandic mythographer Snorri Sturluson described the light elves as luminous and more beautiful than the sun, so we can suppose that their homeland was just as gracious. Those words come from Vikinger.org. A ton of great research to be had there. So as we can see, the light elves are depicted as these luminous and ethereal beings, more radiant even than the sun, and they're considered to be benevolent spirits who possess a very deep connection with nature itself, fertility, and wisdom. And they're associated with the god Freyr, who is said to rule over them from his palace in Alfheimr. Light elves are believed to dwell in the upper realms, interacting with gods and humans, and often acting as messengers or even intermediaries between the worlds. The dark elves, sometimes called dwarves, live underground, and they're known for their craftiness and their cunning and sort of their evil. And the light elves, like we said, they're more like this divine thing. They're more revered, but the dark elves you kind of want to stay away from. The light elves and their association with Freyr, this god of fertility and peace, it ties them deeply to the agriculture and the well-being of the land. Alfheimr itself is considered one of the 9 worlds in Norse cosmology, and maybe, just maybe, you could think of those 9 worlds as dimensions. But Alfheimr is this place of great power, this place filled with light and music and eternal beauty. It kind of sounds like heaven, reflecting the elves' luminous nature. And the light elves are often seen as the guardians of the life and the joy and the natural harmony that is there inherent at Alfheimr. They embody these qualities that are so cherished and sought after by those who honor them. Sturluson described this elvish realm in The Fooling of the Gylfi, the first part of the Prose Edda, chapter 31. He says, in ancient Norse rituals such as the Elfablot or the elf sacrifice, offerings were made to the elves to seek their favor, especially for fertility and protection. And these practices suggest that the elves were deeply integrated into Norse spiritual life, and they were considered powerful beings whose goodwill could bless individuals, families, and communities. Many places are there, and glorious. That which is called Alfheimr is one, where dwell the peoples called light elves. But the dark elves dwell down in the earth, and they are unlike in appearance, but by far more unlike in nature. The light elves are fair to look upon, fairer than the sun, but the dark elves are blacker than pitch. The actual position of the dark elves in Norse mythology stays kind of uncertain. Old texts describe how they live below or deep within the earth, and they are much darker skinned and uglier than light elves. The description represents them more or less like dwarves, who are prominent craftsmen of Norse cosmology and mostly live underground, where they forge important mythological artifacts, and a lot of games and movies portray them exactly like that. Many historians, though, support the point of view that dark elves might be the same exact thing as dwarves, just called differently based on the lore. Personally, I kind of believe this is the case. American scholar John Lindo, professor emeritus of Old Norse and folklore, even placed Alfheim geographically in some of his claims. He and other modern scholars noted that it could be the area between estuaries of the river Goda and Glomma, at the border of Sweden and Norway. People living in this region are considered fairer than others, as in they're more beautiful. And that's what made the ancient people of Scandinavia think of this land as Alfheim. Although, according to these claims, the mythical land of light was inspired by this region, and these claims are still the subject of debate by academics to this day. Now, we all know I'm going to Iceland in a couple weeks to film a documentary searching for mythical beings in the Icelandic countryside. And many people assume that they're the same things as elves, and we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier in this episode. But on the contrary, the Huldafolk, or the hidden people, these, and these elves in Icelandic folklore are similar, but there's a couple distinct differences, and I thought I'd talk about that a little bit. The hidden people, the Huldafolk, are described as human-like in appearance, often wearing traditional Icelandic clothing, and they're considered to live lives parallel to us. And they're believed to have their own society, even very similar to ours, with homes and churches and farms. Elves, on the other hand, they're typically depicted as more mystical beings, right? With a more supernatural appearance, often associated with light or a divine presence or the deep inner earth and all that kind of stuff. The hidden people are generally secretive and only interact with humans when provoked or when their territory is disturbed. And they're often seen as protectors of the land, similar to the light elves. And Icelanders respect their spaces, such as their rocks or the hills where they're believed to live. Elves, though they're also elusive, are more likely to interact with humans in sort of magical or mystical type ways, doing the whole granting favor, miracle, casting spells, whatever, enchanting people. That's more of the elf thing, not really a hidden people thing. The hidden people are typically not portrayed with the same great powers and magic, or whatever you want to call it, that elves possessed. They are more human in their capabilities, though they can become invisible and are known for their skills in crafts and the care of nature. Elves, though, they're more portrayed with strong magical powers or some kind of otherworldly powers, which include this ability to enchant things and shapeshift and control nature or animals. It's a little bit different than the hidden people. Hidden people are also seen as part of Icelandic everyday culture. They're a race that exists directly alongside humans, but hidden from view, one dimension over, perhaps. The belief in them is integrated into modern Icelandic culture, and it influences a lot of things, including building projects and road construction, and even local policies and laws. Elves are more commonly viewed as mythical beings that belong to the broader realm of folklore and fairy tales, and they're connected to the ancient Norse pantheon and stories. So while both the Huldafolk, the hidden people, and the elves are integral to Icelandic folklore, the hidden people are more human-like and culturally intertwined with Icelanders, and seen as hidden protectors of the land, where the elves, They're more like a great powerful entity. It's some kind of ethereal being associated with myth and legend. In Celtic mythology, elves are even more different. They're often referred to as the Fae or fairies, and we're going to have a What Is It episode about them soon as well. They're these mystical beings that differ significantly from their Norse counterparts, and they're deeply intertwined with nature, living in places like forests and rivers, caves, or mounds known as fairy hills. The Celtic elves are thought to inhabit a hidden realm called the Otherworld, which can be accessed through natural portals like fairy rings. That's one correlation right there. The whole mushroom circle thing. That kind of branches over from Celtic lore to Norse lore as well as standing stones for that matter. Unlike the typically benevolent light elves of Norse mythology, however, Celtic elves are more complex and unpredictable. They can be helpful, granting blessings and fertility and protection, but they can also be mischievous and very dangerous, and even kidnap young, especially if they feel disrespected or wrong. This duality reflects the Fae's connection to nature, embodying both its nurturing and wild, untamed aspects. And they're known for their love of trickery and magic and shapeshifting, often luring humans into their world with music or light or unexplainable situations, strange occurrences. But once in the other world, time often works differently, with a single night in their realm maybe translating to years or even centuries in the human world. Celtic elves are also believed to have a fluid form. They're capable of appearing as small, delicate creatures with wings or as more human-like monstrous beings, and they're known to steal away human children and replace them with these things called changelings. And we'll have a What Is It about them as well, folks. And these changelings are the Fae's offspring, disguised as human infants. Truly horrifying. The Fae are also thought to bestow curses and cause illnesses or bring bad luck to those who disrespect them, often leading to tales of humans needing to leave offerings of milk or bread or some kind of treasure, something that shines, to appease them. So, in essence, while Norse elves often serve as intermediaries between humans and gods, Celtic elves embody a more unpredictable, powerful force of nature. But both can represent a strange beauty, right? One notable story that reflects the nature of Celtic elves, or fairies, is the tale of the Elves of the Mound from Irish folklore. And in this story, a young woman named Ethna wanders into a fairy mound, and it's this mystical place believed to be a portal to the other world. And inside, she finds herself surrounded by a powerful race of fairies called the Sidhe. At first, they appear welcoming, offering Ethna enchanting music and food and drink. However, this hospitality has kind of a catch to it. The food and the drink, they're enchanted, and by eating these things, it traps her in their realm. But Ethna manages to resist this food, and she knows that something is off and escapes the mound. Now the fairies are getting pretty angry at her refusal of food and the way she wants to run off, so they curse her with misfortune. And this tale kind of illustrates the unpredictable nature of the Celtic elves, because you kind of have to play by their rules or it's not going to work out so well for you. Even though they can appear charming and hospitable, they can turn vengeful in the blink of an eye if they feel disrespected or that the world as they love it has been disrespected. There's another fascinating Celtic elf story. It's the Changeling of County Clare. And in this story, a young mother sort of becomes convinced that her infant son has been replaced by a changeling. And of course, like I said, a changeling is a fairy child, a fae child that's left in place of the human baby. The changeling behaves strangely, it cries constantly, and it doesn't eat. So, being desperate, the mother consults a local wise woman and tells her the wise woman tells the mom to like expose the changeling to a fire, and that this method is supposed to force the fairies to return the child that they stole in the first place and take their changeling back. So she does this, and it turns out that her real baby is returned, and she has no idea how. And once again, we see how, these Celtic elves have this sort of dual nature, the Fae, as we should call them. They can enchant and they can deceive, and they can often lead into dark and very dangerous, scary situations. And their ability to swap children kind of reflects their connection to these otherworldly realms as well, where they're known to take whatever they want and challenge our perception of reality. So, yeah. Listen, guys, thanks for tuning in. Hope you had a fun time learning about elves and that my rambling didn't bore you to death. Remember, don't drink the water and question everything.